is on as we get ourselves ready for the 1990 Grand Prix 2 World Championship season finale. Good evening, Jake Sanson with you once again, and boy oh boy are we in for a thriller. 5 drivers fighting for the World Championship. Mika Hakkinen, Riccardo Patrese, Ayrton Senna, Gerhard Berger and Derek Warwick, and none of them have bagged pole position. This is going to be an absolute thriller, and of course with only 16 points between the 5 contenders, there are now just 16 points available. So for the man in 5th in the Drivers' Championship, Derek Warwick, he has to win and set fastest lap, and hope against hope that Mika Hakkinen is not going to score high. In fact, looking at the mathematics of it, with not being able to get pole position, Derek Warwick has actually fallen out of the title fight. So that is a big problem for him. And now, unfortunately, Warwick can only finish as high as 2nd in the Drivers' Championship. But the only way to do that is to get a win and a fastest lap. So now there are just 4 remaining: Hakkinen, Patrese, Senna and Berger. And of course, there is still the Constructors' Championship, which is being fought between McLaren and Tyrrell, to be considered. Without further ado, let's bring you coverage of the 1990 Australian Grand Prix. It's the Williams in pole position, but it's Michael Schumacher, not championship leader Riccardo Patrese. One-time championship leader Riccardo Patrese. He is now a point behind Hakkinen, of course. Ayrton Senna lines up 2nd on the grid and is now the new favourite to become 1990 World Champion. Nigel Mansell 3rd in the Ferrari. Gerhard Berger 4th in the McLaren. Mika Hakkinen is there, though, in the Brabham in 5th place alongside Nelson Piquet in his last race for Benetton. Mauricio Gugelmin and Nicola Larini have put the Leighton House and the Ligier up very high on the starting grid. Riccardo Patrese is only 9th on the grid alongside Derek Warwick, who has just failed to become world champion. Alain Prost in the Brabham 11th and Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Tyrrell down in 12th position on the starting grid, with his teammate Jean Alesi in 13th alongside Alessandro Nannini's Benetton. Andrea De Cesaris in the Lotus, Stefano Modena in the Ferrari, Michele Alboreto and Ivan Capelli on row 9, and row 10 is Jean-Denis Delatraz and Adrian Fernandez. Then it's Marc Blundell and Alessandro Zanardi in the 2 Lego Acellas, Alan McNish in the Life and Martin Donnelly in the Eurobrun ahead of his teammate Juan Fangio II, and Christian Fittipaldi lines up at the back of the grid. So, Michael Schumacher lines up in pole position for the first time in his Grand Prix career in the Williams Honda. Could he win in his 2nd Grand Prix for the Williams team as Ayrton Senna becomes the new championship favourite? Watching for the lights, it's green, we're racing in the Australian Grand Prix of 1990, and this is the championship showdown. A terrible start for... It looks like a terrible start for Gugelmin. A brilliant start from Gugelmin. Not a great one from Senna. He and Berger have slipped down the order. Oh, and there's contact. So many cars involved. Capelli's had a shot. So too has the Benetton of Nannini. Several cars involved in that one. Alboreto is off the circuit as well. So several cars involved. Let's have a look at it again as Capelli goes down into the first corner. And a couple of cars missing their braking point completely for turn 1. Capelli got shunted into. So Capelli is shunted into the back of Nannini's Benetton, and both cars are off the road. I think Nannini is going to be out of the race in the Benetton, so big problems down the field. Alboreto was caught up in it. I wonder if it was Alboreto who caused it. Let's have a look as we ride on board with Alboreto. We'll look at it from his point of view. Oh yes, he is the one who started it. Alboreto causes absolute carnage down to turn 1, and his teammate's gone in there as well. Fernandez hit him at the back. So Alboreto is out, so too is Nannini and Capelli. Everybody else seems to have got away with it. But yet again, Nannini is taken out on a first corner incident. It's not the first time that's happened this year. Capelli is out and Alboreto is out as well. But look at this. In the Williams, Michael Schumacher has got away clean ahead of the rest of the field. And Hakkinen has launched forward into 2nd place in the Brabham. So a terrific start for Hakkinen, bad start for Senna. He's down to 4th behind his countryman Mauricio Gugelmin. So the McLarens are having to give chase to the Brabham of Mika Hakkinen as Senna now charges after Gugelmin in the Leighton House down the back straight, and into 3rd place goes the 1988 world champion in a bid to become world champion again, and Patrese's made the move on Berger. So Patrese stays in front of the McLaren on championship points. But this has changed everything. He's got an opportunity now from the front to win in a Williams. Michael Schumacher leads the 1990 Australian Grand Prix. So Nigel Mansell in 8th position in the Ferrari and doing a fine job behind Alain Prost's Brabham, but Schumacher has extended his advantage out front. And this is exactly what he wanted to open his account for 1991 with Ferrari. If he could go there as a Grand Prix winner, That's definitely going to up his stock as he continues on his fledgling Grand Prix career. Hakkinen second, Senna third, Gugelmin fourth, Patrese fifth, Berger sixth, then Prost, Mansell, Piquet, Larini, Warwick, Alesi, Frentzen, De Cesaris and Delatraz. Puff of smoke from the rear brake of Prost as he tries to get on the throttle very quickly indeed there. So this is the fight for the Drivers' Championship, and there are 4 drivers still in it. Sadly, Warwick is out of the contest. He needed pole position to keep his hopes alive, and he hasn't managed to do that because that was the man who leads the race, Michael Schumacher. Oh, and that's McNish. McNish has spun it in the life, so he now needs to try and get the car going again. So Alan McNish, I'm afraid, is down at the back of the field, having spun off. And we've got a few overtaking moves in the field. I think that is Berger trying to get past Patrese and failing to do so. And Mansell has got past Prost. Mansell has got past Prost Brabham. And Piquet is trying to stretch away from Nicola Larini. Schumacher is doing exactly what he wants to do out front, which is disappear out into the lead. And it looks like he's on a 2-stop strategy. So this could not be better for the Williams Honda of Michael Schumacher. If only he could have done this in Suzuka, the Williams team might still have a chance in the Constructors' Championship, but their double DNF at Suzuka counted them out of the Constructors' Championship race. They could still overtake Tyrrell to be second in the points. Now that is going to be a great fillet for the Williams team in terms of their bonus points for next year. And it's certainly looking good for McLaren to become Constructors' Champions because both Tyrrells, Alesi and Frentzen, are out of the points currently. So it's looking very rosy indeed for McLaren. It's looking brilliant for Mika Hakkinen, who looks like he could become the world champion. But Senna is third position right behind him. Oh, and there's an off! There's an off up the road! Who's that's gone? I think it's one of the Tyrrells. It's Alesi. Alesi's had a massive crash. Now what's happened there? Let's have a look and see if Alesi, he's trying to battle his way through. He's hit the curbs. Oh, Jean Alesi. A big shunt. And I'm afraid that is game over for the Frenchman, and it's also game over for the Tyrrell team in the Constructors' Championship. They are out, as Jean Alesi is almost certainly not going to score now. He does get going again, but I'm afraid Jean Alesi's chances of getting a decent result... Oh, and Gugelmin has spun it! Gugelmin in the Leighton House from 4th position has spun the car. Now, he should be able to get that going again because he's lost it in a fairly slow part of the course, it has to be said, but he should be able to get that car going again. So Gugelmin in serious trouble as the rest of the field squirms through. Modena's not having a good race. He's behind the Liorcella of Mark Blundell, who dominated, don't forget, in the earlier Go Bobbit at UK Cup qualifying race. So a very interesting situation for the team there. And Gugelmin's now got to wait until Jean Alesi's Tyrrell goes by before he tries to rejoin the race. So, not great news for the Leighton House driver Mauricio Gugelmin, as Modena has a bit of a lock-up through the chicane. Almost throws the car into the wall, but Michael Schumacher leads here in Australia. And this is going to be great news for Ferrari. They've got Nigel Mansell, who won last time out, and Michael Schumacher, their new driver for next year, currently leading. Oh, that's Fangio. Fangio is out of the race in the Eurobrun. What happened? He's come through the first corner. Everything's going fine. And has he spun? Yes, indeed. Fangio spins and hits the wall very hard, loses the rear wheel. So I'm afraid that's Juan Fangio II out of the race on lap 4. So a big embarrassment there for the Argentine as he crashes out of what is likely to be his last Grand Prix in Formula 1, certainly for a while. And after his 8th place finish at the 3rd race of the season at San Marino, I don't think we could see Fangio scoring more points anytime soon. But Gugelmin has got going again, I can tell you that. And he's trying to close up. Now, Hakkinen is going after Schumacher. The gap is 2 seconds. Senna is 4.2 seconds back. Now, what about their fuel strategies? Senna looks like he's going long into the race. Certainly longer than Hakkinen and Schumacher are. So I think Hakkinen... Oh, no, Schumacher's going quite long. Hakkinen looks like he's on a 3-stop strategy. Schumacher and Senna look like they could be on 2-stop strategies. So Hakkinen is trying to make use of a light fuel load in the Brabham to move his way forward in the Grand Prix. So Schumacher, Hakkinen, Senna. And of course it looks like it could be Hakkinen versus Senna in the Drivers' Championship. But don't forget Patrese and Berger, who are 4th and 5th, and they are all title contenders too. Hakkinen is on 87 points as Warwick spins. Well, he had a good chance of the title, but now, as we know, it's all come to nothing. So Derek Warwick spins out of the 1990 Australian Grand Prix. He will be able to get the car started again. But unfortunately, that's not the way to go about it. He now has to reverse the car back onto the circuit. Oh, and that's... oh, he's going the wrong way around the circuit. Oh, well, Derek Warwick, I'm afraid that's put him out of the race. I don't really know what to say to that. As Warwick desperately trying to get going again, and unfortunately he has crashed himself out of the Australian Grand Prix in rather unceremonious fashion there. So Derek Warwick will not be the 1990 World Champion. But he knew that coming into the race anyway. Unfortunately, he will not add to the Lotus Renault team's points tally. And there goes the other Lotus! That's De Cesaris crashing out at turn 1. Ryan Ferris victorious as the team boss of Lotus at Spain. And now both Lotuses are out after 5 laps. What a dramatic start to the race for the Lotus team. They are out already. I can't believe that. What misery for the Lotus squad. Now Schumacher leads, Hakkinen is second, and Senna is third. That's the last time you'll see the Yellow Pages Lotus before it becomes backed by Castrol and Renault next season. So it could be a fascinating looking car next year as they try to increase their development. But Mika Hakkinen in the Brabham, running ahead of Senna in the McLaren, his main championship rival, along with Riccardo Patrese. Just 3 points between these 3 drivers. And of course, whoever wins this race, whoever beats the other drivers, is almost certain to win the World Championship. So far, Hakkinen leads the title race on 87. Patrese has 86. Senna has 84. Berger has 81. And that's Fittipaldi! Fittipaldi in the life! Oh, Fittipaldi just catches the curb, hits the wall, and he's out of the Australian Grand Prix. What a shame for the Brazilian. So that's a big exit and a big disappointment for Christian Fittipaldi, who will not score points in 1991, nor will his teammate Alan McNish at this rate, although it could be the Life team's first and only point in their season in a race that's only yielded 4 starts across the 2 cars in 2 races. And Fittipaldi is out once again. He crashed out last time as well, of course. And Alan McNish was the man who finished the race, albeit in 14th place. So Senna in 3rd position ahead of Patrese and Berger. Mark Blundell locks up the Osella in the hairpin in front of Zanardi. And is there a Ferrari behind them now? No, Modena has recovered back into 12th position ahead of Adrian Fernandez in the Arrows and behind Delatraz in the Ligier. But Michael Schumacher is leading in the Williams Honda and doing a fine job. If the race were to end like this, it would be Mika Hakkinen who would become world champion ahead of Senna. Oh, Fernandez just clips the curb on the way through the chicane. That's how to save it if you get it wrong. And Fernandez has done so, but unfortunately De Cesaris did force himself out of the race. And so the Italian will not be continuing at Lotus, of course, for next year. As Andrea De Cesaris, he picked up a 3rd place finish earlier in the year, but other than that, he's had a 5th and an 8th, and no other strong finishes this year. So Lotus decided it was time to end his contract. He was testing for them earlier in the year. He took over from Martin Donnelly mid-season, and now Derek Warwick will lead the team next year with the Italian former Ferrari driver Michele Alboreto. There's Senna. 3rd position in the McLaren, ahead of Patrese and Berger, who are still duelling over 4th position. Ayrton Senna, being patient in this Grand Prix. He needs to keep the faith. He needs to keep his hopes alive. But the man in front of him, Mika Hakkinen in the Brabham, is set to become world champion if it ends like this. Here's Nelson Piquet in the Benetton. 8th position for the 3 times world champion. And this will be his last race with Benetton before he steps aside and joins the Arrows team alongside Adrian Fernandez. They will have BMW engines next year, which is giving Nelson Piquet real positivity heading into the 1991 season. He only seems to be doing 1-year contracts these days because he's only signed for the Arrows team for 1 season. So Hakkinen continues on his way in the Brabham. Hakkinen having a great run. Senna in 3rd position. 4th place Patrese. 5th place for Berger. Here's Larini. Oh, Larini trying his luck on the back of Nelson Piquet's Benetton. So this is going to be a really exciting run for the Ligier team. Schumacher continues on his way. And the battle is very much joined here at the front end of the field for the German driver, who's been a star with the Reynard team, but put him in a competitive car and he's been able to showcase what he can do. He was unfortunate at Suzuka because he missed the chance as Larini gets it slightly wrong there at the first chicane. But Schumacher had a great chance at Suzuka to prove what he could do, but he ended up going off the circuit at 130R just seconds after his teammate Riccardo Patrese had done so. And the Williams team were out on the spot and out of the Constructors' Championship. But Schumacher, with no pressure, and knowing that in his next race he will join Ferrari for the 1991 season, is just enjoying life in the Williams. Here's Berger trying to take on the Williams of Riccardo Patrese. This is a big one for the championship fight as Berger gets through. So Gerhard Berger moves up into 4th position in this Grand Prix. And by comparison to Patrese, that's a decent points also. Berger is looking at 4th place. That'll be 8 points. That'll put Berger on 89. And Patrese is looking at 6 points. That will put him on 92. But Hakkinen is looking at 12 points. That's going to put him on 99. And Senna is looking at 10 points as McNish breaks down. So the Life team, unfortunately, unceremoniously end their Grand Prix journey here in Adelaide with both cars out of the race before the half-distance point, before we've even reached 1/4 distance. So both of the Life cars, I'm afraid, are now out of the Australian Grand Prix. And that is a real shame for the Life team. And that is the last we'll see of them in Formula 1 racing. But as I was coming back to it, Hakkinen and Senna. Senna is on 10 points at the moment, looking at having 94 by the end of this race. So he needs to turn the tide over Mika Hakkinen. He is 3 points behind him. So he could really do with moving up a couple of places ahead of Mika Hakkinen in the Brabham. And, well, this is interesting for McNish because the car is cruising down the back straight. He could really do with pulling the car over and parking it in the wall, to be honest, because the car is still partially on the racetrack there. But fortunately, he's within good position to avoid things as Berger spins off. Gerhard Berger spins off, and that surely ends the Austrian's dreams of becoming world champion in 1990. He really needed to continue this pace in front of Patrese, and sadly the Austrian is out. Gerhard Berger is out of the Australian Grand Prix. He spins the car, throws his toys out the pram and walks away from the McLaren. Gerhard Berger is out of the World Championship. And that means that now there are just 3 drivers who can become world champion as Gerhard Berger is out. Now there is McNish still cruising down the back straight. What is happening with the Life? He's still on the racetrack there, actually. Fortunately, everybody is managing to get out of the way. I think Alan McNish is trying to get the Life back to the pits as Alesi goes off again. That's the second off this weekend for Jean Alesi. And now he gets going again. So here is McNish. What is Alan McNish in the Life doing? I can't quite figure out what he's up to. But we've got cars coming past him down the back straight. And they're going this way and that way to avoid the Life. But Alan McNish is cruising down the back straight. I'm not entirely sure what on earth is going on there, as McNish cruises down the back straight. Delatraz has got past him to lap him. Nobody's been balked or hurt by the stop of McNish. Oh, it's a puncture that's put him out of the race, in fact. So it's a puncture that's taken him out of the Grand Prix. And finally the car comes to a stop. Finally the marshal gets to him. But thank goodness nobody hit McNish's car, because that would have been pretty awful for both McNish and whoever hit him. But it's not going to happen. That is good news. So there's Mika Hakkinen in the Brabham. 2nd place, behind Schumacher's Williams. And then Senna in the McLaren further back, with Riccardo Patrese in 4th position in the Williams. So Hakkinen, Senna and Patrese are the only drivers now who can become world champion, as Gerhard Berger and Derek Warwick are out of the Australian Grand Prix. Alesi and Frentzen, by the way, are very unlikely to overtake Berger and Warwick, because Frentzen is only looking at 9th place and Alesi is down in dead last at this moment in time. So a big problem for him. Now Donnelly is running in 14th place at the moment. in the Eurobrun ahead of Jean-Denis Delatraz. But we have a lot of retirements already. 17 cars running after just 14 laps. Alboreto, Capelli and Nannini all out at the start. Fangio crashing out. Warwick and De Cesaris crashing out on the same lap. Fittipaldi had a problem of some kind. I think it was mechanical. McNish had a puncture and Berger crashed out of the race himself. So a very dramatic situation for him. But so now it's all become very, very unusual as to what is happening here at the Australian Grand Prix. Hakkinen is currently the fastest man on track. He is actually starting to rein in on Michael Schumacher. Piquet is running in 7th position, doing as good a job as he can do. Alesi is trying to make up for lost time. But Hakkinen is consistently going about 0.3 of a second a lap faster than Michael Schumacher. So Hakkinen, in the Brabham, on a lighter fuel load than the Williams, is closing up. And Patrese is catching Senna briefly. So it could be a fascinating Australian Grand Prix as it continues. Because Mika Hakkinen is running a solid afternoon's work here in front of Ayrton Senna. Patrese doing strong in 4th. Mansell in the Ferrari is 5th. Prost in the Brabham is 6th ahead of Piquet's Benetton, Larini in the Ligier, Frentzen in the Tyrrell and Modena in the 2nd Ferrari. So Michael Schumacher is being caught by Mika Hakkinen in the Brabham now. So Hakkinen is really starting to pull away. Very talented young star, the Finn, but is he going to be the first ever rookie world champion? Because he has a great chance to do so. Many people have rated Mika Hakkinen very highly indeed. He was a surprise choice for Ewan Gale coming into the 1990 season. He's still very young, is Mika Hakkinen, the youngest ever Formula 1 Grand Prix winner. But there is a chance, just a slim chance, that Mika Hakkinen could become the first rookie to win the Formula 1 World Championship if you don't count Giuseppe Farina in the first ever Formula 1 season, which many people don't. Mika Hakkinen absolutely storming to victory here. And this is going to be quite a sensational moment for the Finn if he can keep it together. But there's Senna in the McLaren, still driving a strong and competitive race in 3rd. Patrese is trying to hang on in front of Nigel Mansell. But Senna looks like he's going to overhaul Patrese's tally here and level with him on points. So Senna and Patrese would be level on points on 94 apiece. But Hakkinen is going to be ahead of both of them by 5 points at the look of this. Because Hakkinen is looking at 12 points for finishing 2nd, and he's trying to close up on Michael Schumacher. So Hakkinen and Schumacher, two of the youngest talents in Formula 1 racing to put on a bit of a show here, but Schumacher really wants to become a Grand Prix winner in his final race of 1990, and he is leading, and he has led every one of the 16 laps completed in this Australian Grand Prix so far. So Michael Schumacher is already doing a sensational job in the Williams Honda. The 1990 Australian Grand Prix and the championship decider. 3 drivers fighting for the championship and 2 teams fighting for the Constructors' Championship, McLaren and Tyrrell. But it's Hakkinen, Patrese and Senna who are fighting for the honour of becoming the 1990 Grand Prix World Champion. There's Hakkinen's Brabham, 2nd place, 2.8 seconds back from Schumacher's Williams, and with a decent advantage over Senna's McLaren. But Senna is on a heavier fuel strategy, so it's not a panic yet for the McLaren, as Delatraz makes his bid on the inside of Donnelly and gets through. No problems there for the Swiss driver. And the Ligier team are finally having a solid race, with Larini in 8th and Delatraz in 14th. So the Ligier team looking likely to score 3 points if they can keep it together, as Schumacher goes through the first corner, just kicking up the curbs, absolutely perfectly placing the Williams. No problems at all for the car, which is going to have a complete rebranding for 1991. The team will have Porsche engines, and gone will be Canon, gone will be all of the sponsors you see adorning the car. It's going to be a very different machine in 1991. So the team are preparing for what they call the dawn of a new era. So Mika Hakkinen leads the charge for the World Championship in 2nd place behind the Williams driver Michael Schumacher, who I believe is yet to score a championship point this season. Indeed, he has not, because obviously he's had 3 races for Reynard, and he crashed out last time at Suzuka. So there's a good chance that Michael Schumacher could score his first points of the 1990 season and the first points ever in his Formula 1 career by taking a Grand Prix win. And it would only be in his 6th start in Formula 1 as well. He wouldn't break Hakkinen's record for the least amount of starts to win a Grand Prix, but he would certainly be a new star in the making for Ferrari next year, and going to them as a Grand Prix winner is certainly going to improve his stature and status within the team. He'll have a great battle, I'm sure, with Ferrari next season alongside Nigel Mansell, and we could see the emergence of a bit of a sensational superstar at the Ferrari team in 1991. Senna's pulling away from Riccardo Patrese, who's falling into the clutches of the Ferrari, of Nigel Mansell in the background. But Senna is keeping the McLaren dream alive here, with Berger out of the race and therefore out of the World Championship. It's all on Ayrton Senna. He's got to just keep this going now. And it's all down to who is going to score the points, because Hakkinen is on 87, Patrese is on 86, and Senna is on 84. 3 points between them. One of them is going to be the 1990 world champion. Gerhard Berger is out of the race, as is Derek Warwick, and Hakkinen is into the pits for his first pit stop of 3. So Hakkinen in 2nd position, but he's got a 3 pit stop strategy race coming. He's got to find something special to beat Ayrton Senna today. So into the pits, and Patrese is in it as well in the Williams, so they're going 3 stop too. So they're obviously hoping for a reliable day at the office in the Williams. And Larini is into the pits in the Ligier too. So Hakkinen gets in and out of the pit lane and rejoins in P6, Mika Hakkinen in the Brabham. And that's ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. So not a bad place for the Brabham to emerge. Patrese rejoins in 8th in the Williams. And Fernandez goes past the pits, so Larini will rejoin in 10th as Modena in the Ferrari exits the pit lane as well. So all that has promoted Senna to 2nd, Mansell to 3rd, Prost to 4th, Piquet to 5th. Hakkinen has rejoined from the pit lane in 6th, and Patrese has rejoined in 8th. But that's fine, because those are their first pit stops. Crazy to think that we've only got 17 cars running in the Australian Grand Prix with a good 60 laps left of racing. Absolutely astonishing that we've had such high attrition in the opening stages of the Australian Grand Prix. But Michael Schumacher is 7.8 seconds clear of Ayrton Senna, who is on course to become the world champion as Stefano Modena tries to get past Zanardi on his way out of the pits, and that has not worked. And now the Ligier gets past instead of Jean-Denis Delatraz. So Delatraz gets the undercut switch on Modena, and Modena's going to get him back again in the hairpin. There's no way a Ferrari is going to allow a Ligier to stay in front of it for too long, as Mauricio Gugelmin, who is recovering after his early misdemeanors, is down in 15th position. So there is Ayrton Senna in the McLaren, still pushing to try and get one over on Mika Hakkinen in this Grand Prix. You won't see him in the pits for a while yet, because he's on a 2-stop strategy, as is Mansell in the Ferrari. Prost in the Brabham, though, is going to join the pit stoppers as Delatraz comes in. Now, what is Schumacher doing? I think he's on a 2-stop strategy as well. Yes, he is. So Schumacher in the Williams won't be in anytime soon, but he'll be in about the same time as Senna and Mansell in this very intriguing and very dramatic thus far Australian Grand Prix, with 2 of the title protagonists coming into the weekend already out of the race, as Hakkinen in the Brabham continues to pursue his dream of becoming the first Finn to win the world title for 8 seasons after Keke Rosberg got the job done in 1982. And ironically, he got the job done by only taking the victory in 1 Grand Prix all season. So Hakkinen could do the same again. Michael Schumacher in the Williams Honda leads the Grand Prix as in comes Prost and Fernandez. They both come into the pits. So pit stops for the 3 times world champion Alain Prost and for the Mexican Adrian Fernandez as well. Prost, of course, will remain at Brabham next year for an attack at the 1991 World Championship. Piquet will join the Arrows team. Two world champions who have been in the sport a fair while now. Nigel Mansell still hoping to become a world champion. Certainly not going to get the job done in 1990, but they did get a win at the Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka, which will definitely help them into next season. And the Ligier squad, with plenty of good solid battles ahead of them as they go through the first few corners. But Delatraz is looking on course to potentially get a decent finish in this Grand Prix if he can just keep it together, as Modena gets the move on Zanardi. Does he know? He keeps trying a very weird move at a very unusual place on the circuit that doesn't really lend itself to overtaking. Gujamin is now in 13th position, trying to close up, and that's Hakkinen getting past Piquet. So Mika Hakkinen on fresh tyres is pushing very early indeed and manages to get past Nelson Piquet. Now this gives us a bit of an indication as to just how quick the Brabham package is with Mika Hakkinen. They're going to go to Ilmor engines next year, but could they be keeping the number 1 and number 2 cars, but swapping them between Prost and Hakkinen? Because Mika Hakkinen is set to become world champion if he keeps up this sort of pace. Senna is obviously up the road in front, but Hakkinen is pushing hard. And the Finn looks like he's got a chance of this, as Modena again attacks, and this time he gets past Zanardi, but he drifts wide on the exit, and Gujamin has caught up to them. Stefano Modena does not want to be beaten in a Ferrari by Zanardi in an Osella. He's already being beaten by Blundell in his. The Osella team really ending the 1990 season very strong indeed, as they will become the Fondmetal team next season. Nothing will change other than the name, as Ayrton Senna runs in second position. Now here's Gujamin, down the back straight, and Mauricio Gujamin gets the move on Alessandro Zanardi, who will go into a test driving role in 1991. But Mansell is being chased down by Jean Alesi, who is a lap down at the moment in the Tyrrell after his earlier offs, and I now have to say that as a multiple, because Alesi has been off twice in the Australian Grand Prix of 1990. And he's a lap behind Nigel Mansell. So he's just hoping that more cars drop out of the race so that he can score more points. But it's looking very rosy for McLaren to become Constructors' Champions with Ayrton Senna in second place. Even with Gerhard Berger out of the race, the McLaren team look like they've got a solid call on the Constructors' Championship here. Ayrton Senna running a brilliant race in second place though, just 9 seconds adrift of Schumacher. But he doesn't have to put too much pressure on himself. The only man he has to beat today is Mika Hakkinen. Having said that, Hakkinen is only 11 seconds behind the Brazilian. But the Brazilian only has to pit twice. Hakkinen has to pit twice more, having already pitted. So Senna is still, in the long run, looking like the favourite for the championship. But it all comes down to how hard Hakkinen can push in fourth position to gain ground on Mansell and then pass him, and then to make inroads into Ayrton Senna's advantage up in front. Senna's gone for a fairly reasonable strategy, but not an aggressive one. Patrese in the Williams is really struggling. He's down in 6th after his pit stop, and he's not really finding the pace he wanted to find. Still a good 12 seconds behind Mansell, although he is set to jump the Brit in the pit stops as a result of those fresh tyres, as Mansell gets unlapped by Jean Alesi. That's not going to help the Ferrari team's efforts. And a rather disgruntled Nigel Mansell, giving Jean Alesi every indication as to what he thinks of that manoeuvre. So the battle for the title continues as Michael Schumacher leads in the Williams Honda. The McLaren Honda of Ayrton Senna runs in second position. He will not be in that car next year, as he will move to the Williams Porsche team. Oh, that's Donnelly. Donnelly has spun off in the Eurobrunn, and so the Eurobrunn's race is over, as is their career in Formula One, because they will not be returning to the Formula One World Championship in 1991. So Martin Donnelly, I'm afraid to say, has crashed out of the Eurobrunn team's last race of the season. Has Mansell had a problem? Mansell has had a spin. Mansell has spun in the Ferrari, being caught by Hakkinen. Let's see how Mansell did it. Just lost the back end. How unfortunate for Nigel Mansell in a very tricky season already. And Mansell has spun off just seconds after Donnelly. So Mansell will drop down the order. There goes Piquet through to 4th. There goes Patrese through to 5th. Great news for Hakkinen, because Hakkinen is now into 3rd place, just 10 seconds back from Senna, and with no Ferrari roadblock to hold him up. So Mansell should get the Ferrari going again, which he sort of spin turns his way back onto the circuit now. And Schumacher in the Ferrari, Schumacher, who will be in the Ferrari, I should say, next year, comes into the pits. So Michael Schumacher in the Williams pits in from the lead. 26 laps out in front. And he completes the mission in the first stint. 26 laps in the lead of a Grand Prix. Senna now takes the lead. Hakkinen is now second. And Schumacher should rejoin in third, just in front of Nelson Piquet in the Benetton, which he does. So Schumacher rejoins third, still with a great chance to win his first Grand Prix. But Ayrton Senna is now just 10 seconds or so in front of Mika Hakkinen's Brabham. And the Brazilian only has to beat the Finn by 3 points in this race in order to win the championship. If they tie for points, the title will go to Senna on countback. So an absolutely incredible opportunity for the Brazilian. He should already be leading the championship, and the Brazilian knows it. He's thrown away a couple of chances this year. Certainly most recently at the Portuguese Grand Prix at Estoril, where he could easily have had one hand on the championship trophy, but then in the first 3 races of the year, Senna was leading comfortably when the car gave up on him. And also, of course, at the Mexican Grand Prix, the Canadian Grand Prix, he had the win, all confirmed and finalised. And then in the final corner of the race, never mind the final lap, the engine died and Ayrton Senna rather unceremoniously crashed out of the Grand Prix. Oh, and that's a Lacey for the 3rd time. And this time, I think it's game over for the Tyrrell. So Alesi spins out of the Australian Grand Prix, and that seals the Constructors' Championship for McLaren. With Alesi out, they cannot catch the McLaren team, so that is the Constructors' World Championship won for Burger King McLaren Honda. And so McLaren can celebrate that they have won the Constructors' Championship. It now all comes down to the driver's title as Hakkinen takes a little bit longer than he would have liked to get past Alessandro Zanardi in the Osella, and Zanardi's actually coming back at the Brabham. So a very frustrated Mika Hakkinen has lost quite a lot of time sat behind the Osella, as Mark Blundell loses 10th place to Stefano Modena in the Ferrari. What a dramatic race this is turning out to be, as Mansell, by the way, has got past Frentzen. So Mansell is now in 8th place, Frentzen is in 9th position, and Hakkinen is being caught by the Williams of Michael Schumacher. So this is very dramatic indeed, because Schumacher, having made his pit stop, is now intent on doing damage to Mika Hakkinen's attack for the victory. But Schumacher having made the pit stop, Senna is still going. So technically speaking, Hakkinen is actually leading the Grand Prix here, with Schumacher having rejoined behind the Brabham. So when Senna makes his pit stop, Hakkinen is technically going to be leading the Australian Grand Prix, but Schumacher is now very close, as Hakkinen and Schumacher both try and come past Zanardi. They both manage to, but Schumacher tries to keep his foot in to get past Hakkinen, and it doesn't work. So the Finn is now very much technically leading the Grand Prix as Senna comes into the pits. So Mika Hakkinen is going to take the lead of the Australian Grand Prix away from the Brazilian, but there is this interesting 12.8 seconds gap now between Senna and Hakkinen. So Hakkinen will need to pit twice more. Senna is pitting for the first of 2. So it's still looking rosy for Ayrton Senna. Hakkinen's got to do a lot more work if he wants to win the Australian Grand Prix. Piquet comes into the pits as well. Schumacher is through in 2nd. Patrese in the Williams is through in 3rd. So Senna emerges behind Riccardo Patrese. Now, Patrese, I think, made an early pit stop, didn't he? Yes, he did. So Senna has now been jumped by Riccardo Patrese. So Patrese is now in 3rd position. So Hakkinen leads the Grand Prix ahead of Schumacher, Patrese, Senna, Prost, Larini and Piquet. Oh, and that's Gugelmin. A big crash. A big crash from Mauricio Gugelmin. Let's see how he did it. The Leighton House driver, I think it's a carbon copy of Jean Alesi's spin. The only difference being that the Brazilian looks like he's hit the wall. Oh my goodness. That is a big crash for Gugelmin. Oh, that is one heck of a moment for the Brazilian. And he is very definitely out of the Grand Prix, but hopefully he is going to be okay. But that drops the field to 14. Very dramatic as Mansell and Blundell both come into the pits. for scheduled pit stops. But what drama already here at Australia. We are on lap 30 of 81 and we have just 14 cars left running the Australian Grand Prix. So Hakkinen in front of Schumacher for the battle for victory. Third is Riccardo Patrese in the Williams. Fourth is Ayrton Senna's McLaren. Fifth is Alain Prost in the Brabham. And then it's Nicola Larini in the Ligier ahead of Piquet. And then 8th is Frentzen. 9th is Modena in the Ferrari. 10th is Fernandez in the Arrows. 11th is Mansell after a spin and a pit stop. Delatraz is 12th. Blundell and Zanardi are next up. What's happened to Patrese? Patrese's gone off for the first corner. Let's have a look at it. Is it exactly what we saw from a couple of the Go Bobby drivers early on? Yes, it is. To be fair, Patrese is very lucky there to have kept the car going. But Riccardo Patrese makes a very uncharacteristic error for the Italian. And I'm afraid that really does hamper the Italian's chances of becoming world champion. Because Senna's gone clear through. So Senna is now up to third, Prost to fourth, Larini to fifth, Patrese down to sixth. So Senna is looking like he's going to overtake Riccardo Patrese in the fight for the Drivers' Championship. And Hakkinen, of course, in the Brabham, is leading the Australian Grand Prix from Schumacher's Williams. Senna in the McLaren, Prost in the Brabham. Larini, Patrese, Piquet, Frentzen, Modena and Fernandez. Mansell, Delatraz, Blundell and Zanardi are the only other runners in this Grand Prix, would you believe? Just 14 cars still circulating at Adelaide. As we have lost so many cars. We've lost both of the Leighton houses, Gugelmin and Capelli. We've lost the Benetton of Nannini. We've lost the Arrows of Alboreto. We've lost the Lacey's Tyrrell. Donnelly and Fangio in the 2 Eurobruns. The Lotus cars of the Cesaris and Warwick. And both of the Lifes of Magnussen Fittipaldi, as well as Gerhard Berger in the McLaren, who is out of the World Drivers' Championship, as is Derek Warwick. John Lacey out as well, which hands the Constructors' Championship to McLaren. With 50 laps to go, though, there are only 14 cars still running. And only 10 can score points, as we know. So this could be a very dramatic end to a very dramatic Australian Grand Prix. Hakkinen, Schumacher, Senna, Prost, Larini, Patrese. That's the order. Piquet and Frentzen are next from Modena, Fernandez and Mansell, with Delatraz in the Ligier, and then the two Orsellas of Blundell and Zanardi. But Hakkinen looks like he's in the best possible position to win the Grand Prix, as Nigel Mansell sets the new fastest lap, a 1:13.6 from the Ferrari driver, as he continues to try and get himself into a race-winning contention again. Hakkinen still trying to pull away from Michael Schumacher in the Williams, who is running in second place. He led the early stages of the Grand Prix, but Hakkinen is now in the lead of the Grand Prix. Senna has one more pit stop to make. Hakkinen has two more pit stops to make. And of course, Hakkinen is pushing hard! Nearly loses the Brabham altogether at the same place that Mansell went off. That was so close for Hakkinen. But the Finn is feeling the pressure and the weight of expectation. The rookie driver could become the first ever rookie to win the Formula One World Championship. And that was a big error from the Finn, as now he is being pursued by Michael Schumacher in the Williams Honda. So Schumacher is giving Hakkinen plenty of heat, and Schumacher tries a late lunge into the hairpin. Mansell sets another fast lap, a 1:13.5 from the Ferrari driver. Clearly frustrated at the mistake he made earlier on. But now Michael Schumacher has caught up to Hakkinen after Hakkinen made a big mistake. And so it's looking very sweet indeed for Michael Schumacher to hustle Mika Hakkinen, as the Finn is under massive pressure in the lead of the Australian Grand Prix. So still the battle rages here in Adelaide on this beautiful street circuit, as Hakkinen and Schumacher are 1 and 2. Senna is third in the McLaren in the 1990 season climax, with two drivers in particular hungry for the World Championship. Senna on 84, Hakkinen on 87. But this is going to be a long, drawn-out Grand Prix, this. It's going to take a long time for the battle to resolve itself. And Mika Hakkinen is under pressure and under threat from Michael Schumacher in the Williams Honda in his second and last race for the team until he joins Ferrari full-time in 1991. That's Frentzen getting it wrong at the Ketterville Terrace, I think that is. So the Tyrrell in 8th position, trying to get close to Piquet. 3 times a Grand Prix winner this year, and that looks like it's going to be the best win record of the season. Imagine where Frentzen could be now in the title fight if he had started the season. So expect him to fight for the title in 1991. As Hakkinen and Schumacher continue their progress in the lead of the Grand Prix, half a second between them, and Schumacher really stepping up the attack on the Finn. So can Schumacher get one over on Mika Hakkinen? From the Finn's point of view, it's not that big a deal. He wants to win the race, of course, but Schumacher is not in the title fight. He can't really afford to let this become an issue as Mansell tries and fails to get past Fernandez in the arrows. So Mansell will have another crack at this. And the battle continues once more. Still a tough challenge, still terrific opposition. Schumacher's got Hakkinen on the slipstream down the straight, and I think Schumacher is going to take the lead of the Australian Grand Prix if he throws it to the inside, which he chooses not to on this occasion. Clearly trying to intimidate Mika Hakkinen and cause the Finn to make a mistake somewhere. But Schumacher is getting very hungry for the race lead of the Australian Grand Prix back again. He led the first 26 laps of this Grand Prix. Hakkinen took over the lead and has led since then as Modena locks up and loses the back of the Ferrari. Oh, Stefano Modena spins the car, keep it out of the wall, and he manages to do so. So Modena collects the car and lets Fernandez and Mansell get back through. But Modena continues on his way. So Senna is third in his McLaren. The other one is out of the race for Gerhard Berger, but with Tyrrell needing to get a 1-2 really to stand any chances of winning the Constructors' Championship. We now know that it's going to be McLaren that wins the Constructors' Championship. Williams, though, with their cars in 2nd and 6th, have a great chance to overhaul Tyrrell in the Constructors' Championship fight. So the fight for 2nd in the manufacturers' race is still going, with Williams trying to overtake Tyrrell. And Schumacher makes the lunge on the inside of Mika Hakkinen, and I'm fairly sure he's got there. He has indeed. Michael Schumacher takes the lead of the Australian Grand Prix. So Michael Schumacher is back in front with Mika Hakkinen down to 2nd. That puts the pressure on the Brabham once again, but he doesn't have to panic just yet because his main title rival is behind him. In fact, both his main title rivals are still behind him. Even though he's lost the lead of the Grand Prix, Hakkinen certainly hasn't lost the chance to win the Formula 1 World Championship. But Senna is catching. The gap is 4 seconds now between Senna and Schumacher. So Senna is really putting on a bit of a charge here as Hakkinen struggles in this point in the race. Look at that. Hakkinen was on a 1:16.2 last time. Senna did a 1:14.2. Has Hakkinen got a problem coming? Because the Brabham is definitely losing big time here. I mean, I know a portion of that was Schumacher getting by, but I wonder if Hakkinen's got a problem in the Brabham, because he's certainly losing a rapid quantity of pace now. In terms of straight line speed, the car can still get to about 196 miles an hour down that back straight, which is about what we came to expect from them in practice. But Senna is reeling both Schumacher and Hakkinen in. They are going through traffic, admittedly, but Prost is having problems getting past Zanardi's Osella. And he can't get by there. He's got to keep his foot in and go around the outside of the Italian. And he's not best pleased with Zanardi. That's a good point about Alain Prost, though. He's kept himself in the battle quite quietly here, as Blundell gets out of the way of Michael Schumacher's Williams. Obviously, a little bit of a favour to Porsche there, because Porsche will be in the back of the Williams engine. Will be the Williams engined car next year will be a Porsche engine. And Blundell will use Porsche engines next year as well in his new berth at Benetton. But look, Senna is absolutely rapid now, catching after Senna and Schumacher. Schumacher and Hakkinen, as Senna brings the gap down to under 2.9 seconds. Senna is pushing, and he knows that Hakkinen is vulnerable at this point of the race. He can take the lead of the World Championship back, with Hakkinen still needing to pit twice more, and Senna only needing one more pit stop. So this is looking very sweet indeed for Ayrton Senna as Blundell unlaps himself from Hakkinen in the Brabham. I wonder if Hakkinen's got a big problem, because all of a sudden Hakkinen's pace has just completely fallen off the cliff. Either that or Hakkinen's tyres have gone, and so Hakkinen will need to come into the pits as Delatraz loses the Ligier. And that's it. It's all over for Delatraz. What a shame. So Jean-Denis Delatraz, the Swiss ace, has now crashed out of the Australian Grand Prix as Senna closes to within less than a second now of Mika Hakkinen in the Brabham. So with Delatraz out of the Australian Grand Prix, Hakkinen has got a very, very fast McLaren underneath him. Look at that, Senna's right there as Hakkinen now goes round the outside of Blundell's Osella. And that's held up Senna. Senna's not going to be happy about that at all. So Ayrton Senna will try his luck on the Osella. He does indeed get by. Oh, and Zanardi's out of the race. Alessandro Zanardi's out. Now, what's the reason for that? The car is slowing. Suspension failure by the look of it. So suspension failure puts Zanardi out of the Australian Grand Prix. So that's one of the Osella team then out here in Adelaide. And that's unfortunate. But the battle for the World Championship is raging here at Adelaide, Australia, as Hakkinen and Senna battle down the back straight. Now, Hakkinen's been fortunate with the traffic on this occasion, but Senna has reeled in the fin. So there's going to be a sensational challenge between those two as Mansell closes up on Fernandez, tries to get the overtaking move, and it hasn't worked. So Schumacher can keep running. Now, Hakkinen's got to make a pit stop. Here we go. Hakkinen's coming in. So I think he's pushed those tyres very hard indeed. And now that he's at the end of his second stint in the car, he's now got to pit in. So Senna is released. But Brabham really do have their backs to the walls here with Mika Hakkinen. I'm not sure if this strategy is going to work for the Finn. They're going to give it the best they've got. As Prost goes through into third, Larini will go through into fourth place. Piquet will go through into fifth, having just got past Riccardo Patrese in the Williams. So look, there is Patrese. Piquet's got past him, so Patrese's really struggling for pace now as Hakkinen rejoins in 7th in the Brabham. But Schumacher leads Senna by 5.3 seconds. So we know how fast Senna can go. He got a little bit held up in the traffic, but he managed to get that gap down to about 3 seconds between Schumacher and Senna. And Senna is still pushing. So maybe Senna is saving the very best he can bring out until the very last race of the season. There is Ayrton Senna as Mansell finally makes his bid on Fernandez and gets through. So a nice overtake there from the Ferrari who won the Japanese Grand Prix, of course, Nigel Mansell. But Senna is pushing, trying to catch up to Michael Schumacher, and he's taken 0.3 of a second out of him in the last sector. Modena coming out of the pits right in the path of Senna. And Senna is absolutely enraged as Prost comes into the pits. Larini does the same, but yet again Senna is being frustrated by catching traffic at the wrong moment. So Stefano Modena brings the Ferrari right out of the pits at exactly the wrong moment. And that gives Hakkinen a breath of fresh air. It also gives the Williams ahead of Schumacher a bit of breathing space. But Ayrton Senna does look to have well and truly beaten Patrese to the victory here in terms of the drivers battling for the title. But has Senna got enough in reserve to have another crack at Michael Schumacher? We're at the halfway point in the Australian Grand Prix, and would you believe there are only 12 cars running? Adelaide really is a car killer, and it's killed off over half the field in the course of the first 40 laps of the Australian Grand Prix. And this man, Michael Schumacher, in the Williams Honda, is leading. He has led all but 9 laps of this Grand Prix. The other 9 laps were led by Mika Hakkinen, as that's Hakkinen getting by, I do believe, on Frentzen to lap him. Oh no, sorry, that's Prost to move past him. I do apologise, as Patrese in the Williams comes into the pits for his second pit stop. But Patrese is not getting the maximum out of this Williams compared to Hakkinen and even his teammate Schumacher. But he's not finding the pace on Senna's McLaren either. And this is the problem for Patrese. He just hasn't quite had the killer instinct to go for victory. He's inherited a lot of points this year, but he hasn't really had the gumption to grab a Grand Prix victory when it mattered in 1990. He's had his moments, but he's also let them slip. And he's kept himself in the title fight through consistency more than anything else. As now Ayrton Senna is getting very frustrated, sat behind Fernandez as he closes up on Mansell and Modena. Fernandez and Modena in the title fight. There's Modena in 10th place, Fernandez 11th, and Senna in 2nd place. As he overcooked his tyres now, because Senna was catching Schumacher. Now he's losing a massive amount of ground to the Williams. So momentum is such a big thing in Grand Prix racing. Schumacher has got through the traffic at exactly the right moment. Senna got balked, and it's actually caused him a massive headache in terms of the strategy. But if the championship fight were to end like this, with Senna second and Hakkinen in fourth place, Ayrton Senna would become the world champion because he is going to score 4 points more than Hakkinen, and with a 3-point deficit, Senna would win the title by 1 point. So if Hakkinen can't finish higher than fourth and Senna is second, then Ayrton Senna will win his second World Drivers' Championship. That's Frentzen going off. Can he save it? Oh, well saved by the German, actually. That could have been very messy indeed. And now Senna is lapping back markers as he gets up alongside Fernandez. A shake of the fist from Senna as he laps the Mexican. Fernandez not exactly colouring himself in glory in this Grand Prix as Senna starts to get after Schumacher once again. The gap is down to 5.8 seconds again. So Senna is working his magic at the front of the Australian Grand Prix, trying to gain ground. He did get held up there behind Fernandez. You can tell that. The gap has opened up again to 6.5 seconds. But Senna has raw speed here, and he's pulling out his best in the final race of the season. Hakkinen is trying to catch the Benetton of Nelson Piquet, whilst also maintain his advantage over Alain Prost. Brabham have been very clear this weekend. The man who can be world champion is Mika Hakkinen, so we're going to put all our major advantages into him. And Prost has had to play second fiddle this weekend. A very subtle Grand Prix for the Frenchman. He's currently in 5th place, just 6 seconds ahead of Frentzen's Tyrrell. Larini is 7th in the Ligier, 8th is Patrese's Williams, but he has just made a pit stop. 9th is Mansell, 10th is Modena, 11th is Fernandez, and 12th is Blundell. And that's it. Only 12 cars running in the Australian Grand Prix of 1990 on lap 44 of 81, and Schumacher is about to go into lap 45. Well, the Williams team with a great chance to overhaul Tyrrell in the Constructors' Championship here, with Schumacher looking good for a victory. Schumacher's win alone would take the Williams team ahead of Tyrrell, because they are 8 points behind them in the Constructors' Championship at the moment, and with Tyrrell looking at winning 5, and Schumacher looking at winning 15, and Patrese looking at winning 3 himself, that would be enough for Williams to overhaul Tyrrell. And with Tyrrell with one car out of the race, they've already conceded the Constructors' title to McLaren. They can't now catch them. Even if Frentzen were to win and set fastest lap, which at the moment is looking unlikely, they would still only grab 158 points in the Drivers' Championship. And with McLaren on 167, that is pretty much done and dusted and nailed on as far as the McLaren team are concerned. Spurred on by this, Ayrton Senna wants to make it a double victory for McLaren. And he's already had several opportunities get away from him this year. He wants to assert the fact that even though he's had plenty of bad luck and he's not been in the best situation from time to time, and he's made a couple of mistakes of his own this year, he still wants to prove to the world that he was always meant and destined to be the 1990 world champion, as Nicola Larini is battling away there with Frentzen. Ligier versus Tyrrell. And there goes Larini on the inside of Frentzen. No problem at all for the Italian in the end, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen has to slump to 7th place. Now Michael Schumacher is losing ground again to Senna. Senna's pushing. Let's have a look at the lap times and you can see the difference. Look, Schumacher's on a 1:15.2 the last time by. Senna on a 1:14.6, which is the same pace that Prost is setting in the Brabham. Hakkinen is relatively quick on pace, although Larini is slightly quicker, as you can see. But Hakkinen and Schumacher are actually a little off the pace now. Senna is pushing hard. Fastest of all on that lap, though, was Patrese on his fresh tyres in the Williams. So Ayrton Senna just trying to get the gap down to Schumacher, just trying to make him work for it. Let's not forget that Schumacher and Senna are on the same strategy, and Senna is urging to win his 3rd Grand Prix of the season, although it could have been 7 if you take away all the opportunities that he's had taken away from him this year. So a very tough 1990 season. It's been mighty close all the way to the death here, and we're on lap 47 and we still have 3 drivers who could still very easily become world champion. Mika Hakkinen, Riccardo Patrese and Ayrton Senna. Mika Hakkinen has 87 points, Patrese has 86, Senna has 84, just 3 points between the 3 drivers. But Senna is looking like the favourite now to become the world champion. In second place, catching Schumacher. But will Senna crack under the pressure? He is giving it everything he's got. He is a world champion already. He knows how to do this. His legion of fans back in Brazil want him to fight back in good stead. Patrese running in 8th position, but having only just recently made his second pit stop, so he should make up more ground later. And he's on a 3-stop strategy like Hakkinen. So Patrese with plenty of work still to do in this Grand Prix, but we'll see how it all transpires for the Italian. Here's Nelson Piquet quietly running in 3rd position, but for how much longer? Because Mika Hakkinen is right there behind him, trying to make his own overtaking move and get back into a podium position, which would put him back into the lead of the Drivers' Championship. So that's how important 3rd place is to Mika Hakkinen right now. But if Senna were to win the Grand Prix, he would be world champion whatever happens. Because if Hakkinen finishes 2nd, they will tie for points and the count back would go to Senna unless Hakkinen could get the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, in which case he'd pip him by 1 championship point. It's so close in the 1990 Australian Grand Prix as Senna closes to within 3.7 seconds now of Michael Schumacher's lead. It's very close at the front of this Grand Prix. 21 seconds back, with Piquet needing to pit another time and Senna needing to do likewise. It's looking good for Senna. It's not looking great for Hakkinen. But Hakkinen is in the slipstream of Nelson Piquet. Here we go. Here's the chance for Hakkinen. This will put him back into the lead of the Drivers' Championship. He gets on the inside. No problem. Mika Hakkinen takes 3rd. And that puts him on 97 compared to Senna, who is now looking at 96. So Senna needs to get past Michael Schumacher. He is catching him. But is he catching him fast enough? And can he put pressure on the German enough to force the German into a mistake? That is the key question. So the Williams Honda of Michael Schumacher. There's Senna pushing hard now. 3.7 is the gap. It would come down to the wire, wouldn't it, this title fight? But Hakkinen back into the championship lead, moving into 3rd place, because Senna's only getting 2 points off him at the moment. If Senna were to get the fastest lap of the race, then Senna would become world champion. Piquet in the Benetton is doing his best to stay with Hakkinen, but Hakkinen's just dropping him. Prost is next up in the other Brabham. But this is going to be a race of nerves and steel. The championship fight is going to come down to the wire between Senna, Hakkinen and Patrese. Patrese in 8th place in the Williams. Looks like he just hasn't quite got what it takes to win the title. But Senna and Hakkinen both do. And they are matching each other for pace now. Senna is pushing hard. Let's look at the lap times. Schumacher a 1:15.3. Senna a 1:15.2. Not much in it at all as Patrese tries to gain back some lost ground. Looking to make the move on Frentzen in the Tyrrell. Side by side. And Patrese goes by. Patrese gets through then into 7th position. That means he's on 4 points. So that will put him on 90. Compared to Senna, who's looking at 94. Looking at 96. And Hakkinen, who is looking at 97. So Patrese will come close, but not quite close enough to win the championship. But Michael Schumacher is still trying to get away from Ayrton Senna. This is so close. The World Championship is coming down to the wire. And this man, Michael Schumacher, stands between Ayrton Senna and his 2nd World Drivers' Championship. And Senna is pushing, but so is Schumacher. These two are looking like absolute equals out there on the Grand Prix. And this is only Schumacher's 6th Grand Prix. But he's in a Williams, which is a very fast car indeed. And we know how good the Porsche engine is likely to be this year. They are going to have some influence from Tag, we are told. And of course, they won 3 World Championships together, Porsche and Tag, with the McLaren team in 1984, 5 and 6. And that's Fernandez, loses the car into the barriers. And he is going to be able, I hope, to get the car going again. Well, he's currently spinning the car into the wall every time he goes round. As Hakkinen is now within 20 seconds of Michael Schumacher in the lead of the Grand Prix. Senna is within 2.5 seconds of him, so Schumacher systematically losing time. But Hakkinen is now being held up a little here behind the Osella of Mark Blundell. Blundell gets out of the way, but that could have been very nasty indeed for Hakkinen. Here's Senna 2.6 now behind Schumacher, and Patrese spins! And Patrese is out! Riccardo Patrese is out of the Australian Grand Prix, and that means that he will not become the 1990 world champion. Riccardo Patrese throws away the world title. Unbelievable from the Italian. He spins it, and that is it. Game over for the Williams driver. And a serious hammer blow for Williams in terms of getting into second place in the Constructors' Championship. So Riccardo Patrese is not going to be the world champion of 1990. It's between two men now. Ayrton Senna in second and Mika Hakkinen in third. But the man that stands in their way is the Williams of Michael Schumacher. 11 cars remain in this brutal Australian Grand Prix. And what a title fight it is now. This man on the course to win the World Championship, with Ayrton Senna now the only man who can stop it from happening. So Mika Hakkinen continues in the Brabham. Whoever beats the other, they've got to do it by a couple of more points than this. Because if it finishes like this... Oh, that's Prost going off! Is Prost going to save it? He spins the car, but can he keep the engine running? So Prost has made a big mistake now. Patrese had gone, and now Prost is doing the same thing. Prost spins the Brabham back around. Lorini's got by, and Senna pits. Senna pits. So this is very important up at the front end of the field. Let's see how it's going. So Ayrton Senna in the McLaren comes in, and this is the last pit stop the Brazilian will have this year. All being well. If he comes into the pits again, it means that something is very, very badly wrong. So Senna should rejoin behind Nelson Piquet's Benetton. And that will put Senna in fourth place on fresh tyres, with a little bit of clear track in front of him now as well. So watch out for Senna. He should be flying from this point. Hakkinen is released. He's 18.5 seconds behind Schumacher, but Schumacher needs to pit anytime soon as well. In fact, Schumacher's coming in now. Frenson's in, Mansell's in. So that's going to promote Hakkinen to the lead, Piquet to second, and Senna might even get third, depending on how quick his outlap is compared to Schumacher. Because Schumacher was losing a lot of time. What's he been doing on this lap, actually? He's done a 1:15.5. Hakkinen and Piquet have been... Hakkinen was quicker on that lap than Schumacher. So let's see what the sole remaining Williams can do as Riccardo Patrese falls out of the championship fight. He walks in, but here's Schumacher. Very crucial pit stop for him. Can he get out in front of Ayrton Senna? It's going to be touch and go because the Brazilian has been mighty prior to the pit stop, and subsequently Piquet comes in the Benetton. Where is Ayrton Senna? Coming out of the final turn. I'm not sure it's going to be enough. I think Schumacher will emerge ahead. And has he gone through the first chicane already? Yes, he has. So Schumacher gets through in second position, behind Mika Hakkinen in the Brabham. So Hakkinen leads, but Hakkinen still needs one more pit stop, and that's going to come in about 5 to 6 laps' time. So Mika Hakkinen now leads the Drivers' Championship again, but Senna is pushing, and Senna is only a couple of seconds behind Schumacher. If Senna can catch and pass the Williams ahead of him, he will become world champion in 1990. So with 2 seconds to gain in a little under 30 laps, Senna knows that he's got plenty of time to make this work. There is the Williams in front, and the gap is 2.2 seconds. So Hakkinen is only 6 ahead of Schumacher. There's no way he's going to come in and out with the lead still intact. In fact, he's probably going to drop to 4th place behind Lorini in the Ligier, but Lorini still needs to make another pit stop, I do believe, as well, in front of Piquet. Let's have a look at that to confirm it. Yes, indeed, Lorini will need to make another pit stop. Piquet can run to the end. Prost needs to come in again in the Brabham. Frenson is going to the end, so is Mansell. Modena needs another pit stop. And in 10th place and a lap down, Blundell is about to come into the pits, as is Fernandez. So that gives you an indication as to where we are. And Lorini, yet again, just cooks it over the curbs. He was very lucky there, again, to get away with things, as Schumacher is catching Senna. So, Schumacher is catching Hakkinen, I should say. So Mika Hakkinen, who leads the Grand Prix, is due to come in for the pit stop, of course, very soon indeed. But Schumacher and Senna on fresh tyres are now catching. So both Schumacher and Senna, who have got fuel to the end of the race. Senna has too. And they are pushing each other, but they're also closing in on Mika Hakkinen. But this all comes down to what Ayrton Senna can do. If Ayrton Senna can catch Schumacher and pass him, he will be the world champion. Also, keep an eye on Nelson Piquet, because Hakkinen needs to come into the pits and out again ahead of the Brazilian Nelson Piquet. If he falls behind Piquet, Senna will be champion. Because the Rini's going to make a pit stop. He's going to fall behind Piquet anyway. And, of course, behind Hakkinen subsequently too. So Hakkinen... Oh, that's Senna! That is Ayrton Senna! Ayrton Senna crashes out! I don't believe it! Ayrton Senna has crashed out of the Australian Grand Prix! Let's see how he did it! But it means that Mika Hakkinen is going to be the world champion of 1990! Ayrton Senna throws it away, pushing hard! And that is it! Game over! Mika Hakkinen is the 1990 world champion! Absolutely unbelievable. He becomes the first ever rookie world champion. Hakkinen doesn't need to finish the race. Absolutely amazing. And Mika Hakkinen has done it. Ayrton Senna is out. The Brazilians' title dreams are ended. And so now, with Senna out, he cannot believe it. He cannot believe he's made the mistake for the second time this season and the second time in 3 races. Senna makes an unbelievable error. And so this man, Mika Hakkinen, cannot be caught. I'm fairly sure that Nigel Mansell has the fastest lap of the race, not Ayrton Senna. Well, the only way Senna can win the championship now is if Hakkinen retires and if Senna has set the fastest lap, but I don't think he has. I think Mansell has the fastest lap of the race, because Senna would obviously gain the bonus point for getting the fastest lap. But that is absolutely astonishing. Ayrton Senna crashes out of the Australian Grand Prix of 1990, and he will not win the World Championship. He will take his bitter frustration to Williams next season to try and become a world champion for the second time. But Ayrton Senna cannot believe his luck. What an awful year he's had. And so now this man is almost guaranteed. He only needs to finish 10th. He only needs a fastest lap, in fact, which he can do when he puts his new set of tyres on. If he takes the fastest lap away from Senna, even if he then manages to get passed by another driver, if Hakkinen can bang in the fastest lap, he's guaranteed to win the championship, whatever happens. Because even if he fails to finish, he'll get the bonus point for doing so. But more importantly, even if someone goes faster than him and takes the bonus point away, it will stop Senna from doing so, because Senna is already out. And Hakkinen is 1.6 seconds now in front of Michael Schumacher. What a dramatic end to this title season. Absolutely astonishing. You'd never have guessed that was how it was going to go. But one by one, the championship contenders falter. And the championship leader, Mika Hakkinen, is going to become the first ever rookie world champion. Absolutely astonishing. In fact, no, Senna cannot be world champion. No, Hakkinen cannot be caught, because Senna was not 1 point behind. He was 3 points behind. So with Senna out, Hakkinen is the world champion. There's no way he can be caught now. So Fernandez is now being caught by Larini, who is in 3rd place in the Ligier. A great run from Larini, but he needs to make a pit stop, of course. As does Mika Hakkinen in the Brabham. And he can have a quiet run to 4th or 5th position now, Mika Hakkinen. He doesn't need to win the Grand Prix at all. So it's looking good for Michael Schumacher. I can't believe Senna dropped it. Genuinely can't believe Senna dropped it. But then he has made a series of mistakes this year. So Ayrton Senna is actually struggling to maintain his caliber as one of the world's most talented. Ever since the end of Suzuka last year, Senna has been trying to prove his worth, and he's had a year of frustration in 1990 where he is not going to be world champion. Mika Hakkinen is going to be the first world champion for Brabham since 1983 and the first Finn to win the title since 1982. So now the pressure's off Hakkinen. He can just enjoy the rest of the race. Here's Larini lapping Fernandez. Schumacher has closed to within 0.8 of a second of Mika Hakkinen's Brabham. And Hakkinen, I think, is going to be coming into the pits on this lap. Indeed he is. So Hakkinen is pit stop bound. I think they just put a pit board out for Hakkinen which says WC. It doesn't mean he's caught short. I think that means world champion. Absolutely amazing. A fantastic result for Mika Hakkinen. Drama like you would not believe here in Australia. There are only 10 cars still running as the 1988 world champion Ayrton Senna drops the ball. And dramatically, just 2 years after Brabham missed a Grand Prix season, because they did miss the 1988 season, Hakkinen is the world champion for them in 1990. Here comes Schumacher. He's going to take the lead from Hakkinen. Hakkinen doesn't need to fight him, and so he doesn't. Schumacher takes the lead, and Mika Hakkinen is now uncatchable in the World Championship. He can retire from the race, and his points haul will not be affected. So Hakkinen comes into the pits for his last pit stop, and I wonder how the ice-cool Finn is coping with things. So many people have been behind this very talented Finnish race driver, and they've called him a prodigy, a superstar in the making, and now Mika Hakkinen is a world champion. Absolutely astonishing. Just 21 years of age, the youngest world champion in history, and the first ever rookie world champion. What a year for Mika Hakkinen. He comes out onto the circuit in third position behind Larini, but Larini needs to make a pit stop as well. And that's in front of Piquet. Piquet's been held up by Fernandez, his new teammate for next year. So that has put Hakkinen into third position, which of course is going to become second. So Hakkinen and Piquet look like they're going to be fighting for second position for the rest of this Grand Prix. Not that Hakkinen cares about that at all. He could fight for 10th position for all he cares. He doesn't matter. He doesn't care at all because now he is the world champion. What an astonishing turn of events here at Adelaide, as Michael Schumacher now leads the final race of the season for Williams. Absolutely amazing year. So Nicola Larini is in second position in the Ligier, but I'm fairly sure he's coming into the pits. Indeed he is. It's been a great final race of the year for Nicola. He's been absolutely sensational. Once again proving his worth. I'm sure outgoing Ligier team boss Dave Goddard is very impressed indeed. And it's for his brilliant giant-killing efforts as the Ligier team boss this year that Dave Goddard has been given the keys to the factory at McLaren. So he will switch his efforts to Woking in 1991 to captain the team, which will be driven by Gerhard Berger and Alessandro Nannini in 1991, as Prost comes into the pits as well. So as we predicted, Hakkinen is through to second, Piquet is through to third, Mansell is in fifth position behind Nicola Larini in the Ligier. So it's a good fight back in the end for Nigel Mansell, as he will now go to the end of the Grand Prix, I'm fairly sure. And he has a chance of bagging fourth position off the Ligier of Nicola Larini. But Michael Schumacher leads the Australian Grand Prix, and it looks as though he's going to give Williams second place in the Constructors' Championship, because Frentzen is on 5 points, and that will put Tyrrell on 147. But with Schumacher taking the win, that will put Williams on 147, with a bonus point potentially for, well, a bonus point for Schumacher for the pole position. So if Frentzen remains only 6th, oh, that's Hakkinen with a loose wheel. Hakkinen's got a loose wheel. They've done something wrong at the pit stop. Hakkinen's got a loose wheel, so he's not going to finish the Australian Grand Prix. The Brabham team, in their haste to get Hakkinen out on the circuit, he's got a loose wheel, so Mika Hakkinen is not going to be on the podium in the Australian Grand Prix. He's got to try and bring the car home to the pits to get it sorted again, but you can see that the wheel is crabbing. So Piquet's going to get by, but is Hakkinen going to be able to bring the Brabham back to the pits? If he can, then he can still score points. Well, the celebrations have been too muted, and I think he's done too much damage trying to get the car home. Hakkinen raises his hand in the air. He knows it's all over, but he knows also that he cannot be caught in the fight for the Drivers' Championship. So Hakkinen parks his car. He cannot believe what he's achieved. He's out of the Australian Grand Prix. None of the championship contenders were destined to get on the podium this time. But you're looking at the new world champion. Mika Hakkinen, 1990 world champion as a rookie. Absolutely astonishing. He's fought valiantly to the end of the season. He will score no points because he hasn't completed enough laps. But that's it. The world championship is resolved. And it's the Finn, Mika Hakkinen, who wins the world championship. Unbelievable. So he will wear the number 1 at Brabham in 1991 in the proud Welsh colours next season, as the Brabham team takes on more of a Welsh tilt in the 1991 campaign. But Nicola Larini is now looking at a podium if he can keep in front of Nigel Mansell. That would be a great way for the Italian to bow out of the Ligier team before he joins Reynard for next season. So what an absolutely sensational end to the Grand Prix journey we are on here, as Nicola Larini comes through in 3rd position on lap 65 out of 81. Just 9 cars still running the Australian Grand Prix, and that man is leading them. Michael Schumacher, looking for his first win, his first points finish in Formula 1. He's had great success in the Go Bobbit at UK Cup, and he's had some great races in the Grand Prix season in his 3 appearances for Reynard. He didn't really get a chance at Suzuka last time. He crashed out on lap 2 at the 130R along with his teammate Riccardo Patrese. But now Michael Schumacher is on course to win the Australian Grand Prix of 1990. What a race. What a title fight. But all of the title contenders are now out. And that means that McLaren are Constructors' champions, but both their cars are out of the race. They will have a very somber party later, I'm sure, because Ayrton Senna was so close. And of course, with Hakkinen's loose wheel, if Senna had kept going, he would have been the world champion, no questions asked. But yet again, Ayrton Senna has thrown away the world title. For the 2nd year running, the championship was his to lose, and he lost it. So Michael Schumacher is going to come through in the Williams to score his maiden Grand Prix victory if he can keep it together for the remaining 15 laps at the end of this one, ahead of the 3 times world champion Nelson Piquet, who is 2nd, ahead of Nicola Larini and Nigel Mansell. Frentzen is 5th, 6th is Alain Prost in the Brabham, 7th is Stefano Modena in the Ferrari, 8th is this man, Marc Blundell, in the Osella, and then 9th is Adrian Fernandez in the Arrows. The last 2 races, it's been a race full of attrition at the end of the season, as Stefano Modena in the Ferrari has a bit of a moment there. So a very dramatic system, a very dramatic season of events for the Grand Prix drivers. But on the streets of Adelaide, it was always going to be a tough race. Larini coming into the pits, is it? Oh no, Larini's in trouble! Larini's in trouble, an engine failure in the Ligier. Oh, Nicola Larini had put in such a brilliant drive. But I'm afraid Ligier's last race of the season will not see them on the podium. It will not even see them score a point after Delatraz's crash earlier on. And Nicola Larini will not score a podium. Frentzen gets by to go into 4th place. And, well, that's rather unfortunate for the Ligier team. Nicola Larini had a great chance of a podium here. Was running... Oh, Frentzen's gone off! Frentzen's gone off up the road! So Frentzen... I was going to say that the Tyrrell team, at this rate, may have a chance of staying in front of Williams in the Constructors' Championship, but that off for Frentzen really has put the kibosh on that. Larini is still going. I think he's hoping that it blows itself out and he can continue racing and at least bag some points. I think the heartbreak is too much for Larini to bear. He finally pulls off, but poor Nicola Larini. What a great chance of a podium gone for the Italian, and now there were only 8 drivers remaining. But there's a Tyrrell in the gravel. Heinz-Harald Frentzen still trying to recover at the final bend. And I think Blundell and Fernandez are going to pass him. Well, there goes the Benetton of Piquet. As Fernandez rejoins, he's in 6th position, technically speaking, with Larini out. So Heinz-Harald Frentzen falls behind Prost, behind Modena. So Nelson Piquet is on his own now in second place in the Benetton. The last time that the factory Ford engine will be in Formula 1 for a while. They'll still provide Cosworth engines to a few of the teams next year. But the Ford factory effort will be put to sleep for a little while in Formula 1. And hopefully it will return in the near future. Here's Michael Schumacher though. The Williams has led all but 8 laps of this scintillating Grand Prix. But it could so easily have been Ayrton Senna, who yet again has let the pressure get to him. And the Brazilian is now going to have to join this team, Williams, to try again. Nigel Mansell now in third place in the Ferrari. Despite his spin earlier on, is now back into a position of podium success, with Prost in fourth in the Brabham and the other Ferrari of Stefano Modena in fifth position. So Ferrari have a real chance here of ending on a high. And admittedly, a third and a fifth will give them 16 points in the Constructors' Championship, which I think is going to put them ahead of Leighton House in the Constructors' Championship. That will move them up to 7th place in the Constructors' title, so Ferrari can fight back and gain something from what has been an atrocious season, but they did at least get a Grand Prix victory, which all of the teams in the top 6 in the Constructors' Championship managed to do. So it will be justice for Ferrari that they can climb back to P6, to P7 in the Constructors' Championship race at least. But what a battle, what a season, and an incredible end to the year as we come towards the final 10 laps of this Australian Grand Prix. There's Michael Schumacher leading on lap 70 with 12 laps remaining of the 1990 season, and Williams set to take their third win of the 1990 campaign. 3 wins for McLaren, 5 wins for Tyrrell, although a lot of retirements for them, which is why they haven't been able to have as much success. Tyrrell certainly win the most Grand Prix this year, and nobody would have said that coming into the season, so they've done an incredible job with the added influx from Red Bull, who decided to gamble on Tyrrell, and the energy drinks company from Austria that's only been in operation about 3 years really hit gold with the Tyrrell resurgence. The brilliant design from Harvey Postlethwaite has come to fruition, and the car is quick, the car is rapid, and the team tactics of Sam Hall and Ken Tyrrell seem to have put them back into a championship winning mode. However, they are going to finish second in the Constructors' Championship today, with Frentzen back down to 6th position, and Schumacher looking good for the victory up in front, and the pole position that he won earlier giving them an extra point. So if Williams stay where they are, they will finish the season on 150 points compared to Tyrrell, who are set to finish the season on 147. So Williams should end the season ahead of Tyrrell in the Manufacturers' Championship. And that will give Williams something to be happy about heading into next year. They'll have more budget to plough into the Porsche project. Is Schumacher slowing? Gearbox failure! Gearbox failure for Schumacher! I don't believe it! The German has done so much hard work, and just 11 laps from the flag, Michael Schumacher is out of the Australian Grand Prix. Gearbox failure at Williams. I can't believe it. He had done such a good job up to there as well. So that means that Nelson Piquet takes over the lead of the Australian Grand Prix. And it looks as though the Brazilian, the 3 times world champion, is going to bow out of the Benetton team as a race winner. What drama again. And so this man, Nigel Mansell, is going to be 2nd position in the Ferrari, ahead of Alain Prost in the Brabham. Absolutely astonishing turn of events. Again, you would never have predicted it to go down like this. What an unbelievable, unprecedented scenario. As Mansell now goes to 2nd, Prost now goes to 3rd. Michael Schumacher shaking his head as he walks away. As far as we're all concerned, he is the rightful winner of the Australian Grand Prix. He's certainly the driver of the day. Just think what he can do when he goes to Ferrari next year. But it's heartbreak for the German. Absolute heartbreak. So Nelson Piquet takes the lead. So that means that Ayrton Senna would have won the Australian Grand Prix. After all, because Schumacher having gearbox problems that put him and Williams out of the race. And that also means that Tyrrell secures second in the Constructors' Championship. Wow. I'm very nearly speechless here, which is not great for a commentator, I know, but that puts Nigel Mansell into second, Prost into third, Modena into fourth. And Heinz-Harald Frentzen is in fifth position now in the Tyrrell, although he's very nearly off the circuit there. Blundell in the Osella is in sixth position, ahead of Adrian Fernandez in the Arrows. And that's it. Only 7 cars still circling with 10 laps to go. Make that 9 laps to go for Nelson Piquet, ahead of Nigel Mansell's Ferrari. We can't afford to lose too many more cars now here in Australia, as Prost manages to lap Blundell in his bid to pull away. Fernandez is closed up on Mark Blundell, but Nelson Piquet is now on course to bow out of the Benetton team. With 9 laps remaining here in Australia, he is looking good for the victory, where he's got 24 seconds advantage over Nigel Mansell. Blundell slowing. Now we're getting to the point of the race where retirements will be classified as finishers. So Blundell may have completed enough laps for the Osella team still to be classified in 7th position and therefore in the points, but Blundell is out. And so now there are only 6 cars still running at the Australian Grand Prix of 1990. And incredibly for Ferrari boss Chris Cavani, 2 of those are Ferraris. And they're going to score points, which means that Ferrari will overtake Leitenhaus in the Constructors' Championship after a fabulous final flourish, which they've been on since the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim. Well, Nelson Piquet is 25 seconds clear of Nigel Mansell's Ferrari, with Prost, Modena, Frentzen and Fernandez giving chase. Everybody else has fallen by the wayside, and there are some big names that have dropped out. Mansell hits the gravel. Get it back on the circuit, Nigel. Oh, what a save from the Ferrari driver. That could not have been a better save if he had tried it again, as Alain Prost is only a few seconds behind him now. That was so close to a crash off the circuit there for Mansell. He's already had an off today, of course, as has this man, Alain Prost. But I don't think either of them thought a podium was on the cards today, as Nelson Piquet is set for a race win. And for the Brazilian, that will actually move him level with Jean Alesi in the Drivers' Championship. Joint 6th in the final reckoning of the title fight, because Frentzen is set for 5th place and 6 points. That will put him on 61. Wow. A very dramatic end to the season, no matter which way you cut it. But Nigel Mansell is finally set to get another podium. He will only get a win and a second out of this season, really, after an otherwise miserable campaign. But it's not much worse than he got last year in 1989, of course, when he had a fairly similar miserable campaign at Ferrari. But next year, they think it's going to be the year where everything changes for Ferrari, as Mansell continues his charge to become a world champion. He's almost certain to do it someday. But the question is, when will he get his chance? So there is Nelson Piquet, who will leave the Benetton team after this race, after taking what is set to be his 2nd win of the season. And Nelson Piquet will move to the Arrows team. There's Alain Prost, who will remain at Brabham, but next year he will wear the number 2. And it will be the 2nd time in 3 years he will carry the number 2. Last time was at McLaren in 1989. Next year he will wear the number 2 Brabham, because he's team leader now. That's an interesting scenario for Prost. As Mansell locks up, Mika Hakkinen, there is his car parked up at the circuit, but Hakkinen is the new world champion. There are no two ways about it. And I wanted to see if Prost finishes in 3rd position, how close is he going to get to the point score of Williams? I was just thinking, if Prost can get himself into the lead of the Grand Prix, there's only 6 laps to go, but with what we've seen so far in this Grand Prix, anything's possible. Brabham will actually tie in the Constructors' Championship. Oh no, sorry, they won't quite tie with Williams in the Constructors' Championship, because Williams did score a point with Schumacher for pole position. So Brabham will not move up from 4th place in the Constructors' Championship. If Brabham has a retirement, Benetton can get quite close with Nelson Piquet, but again, they can't overhaul them. The biggest change is going to be Ferrari. If Mansell and Modena finish 2nd and 4th in the Australian Grand Prix, then they will overtake Leighton in the title fight by scoring 20 points, and that will put them on 87, which is only 6 points behind Lotus. So they could still have a resurgence. If Piquet drops out, Mansell and Modena could be 1st and 3rd, and they'll overtake Lotus, and Piquet very nearly doing it there. Goodness me, Piquet having a big moment, a wild lockup out of the first chicane. He doesn't even need to push hard here. They've only got 5 laps to go. So if anybody drops out of the race now, they're guaranteed to score points, but that is not going to make the likes of Schumacher, Senna, Patrese, Berger and Warwick feel any better about their plight. Larini too. Mika Hakkinen can be delirious as a sandboy tonight because he is absolutely overjoyed as he wins the 1990 World Championship. Truly sensational. Truly sensational. Nelson Piquet down to the hairpin for the 77th time. And at the end of this one, he will have just 4 laps to bring the Benetton home in the Australian Grand Prix of 1990. One of the craziest races in living memory. Last year, it was a crazy race because of the rain. That was eventually won in quite dramatic style by, I believe it was Thierry Boutsen in the Williams who won it last year. But this time it's going to be a thriller for Nelson Piquet. Nigel Mansell in 2nd, Prost in 3rd, Modena in 4th, Frentzen and Fernandez a lap down but in 5th and 6th, and they are the last men in the race. As Piquet is on lap 78 of 81, and the Australian fans have been treated to the most sensational title showdown. The first time it's been between 5 different drivers for the world title in the sport's history. And certainly the most unbelievable of championship circumstances. Warwick dropping out in qualifying. Berger spinning off in the early stages and throwing away his chances of the title. Patrese, just after half distance, crashing out. And then unbelievably, Ayrton Senna doing the same thing while pushing Michael Schumacher. And then Hakkinen having a loose wheel after a bodged pit stop, we think. But still, he is the world champion. And Michael Schumacher on course for the win in dominant fashion when a gearbox failure, yet again, the gearbox problems at Williams have befallen them so many times this year. And now it's given Nelson Piquet the lead on lap 79 of 81. 3 laps to go with Mansell and Prost battling each other for 2nd place. Prost trying to get that little bit more out of the Brabham in the closing stages to close in on Mansell's Ferrari. But Mansell and Modena are 2nd and 4th in the 2 Ferraris, and it looks as though they're going to give the team 7th place in the Constructors' Championship after a miserable year, but they have fought back in the latter stages, and that's why they've put their faith in Chris Cavani for 1991. They feel that while the car has been awful, it's not been his issue. They have done a lot of internal building and restructuring for the 1991 season. They brought in Michael Schumacher, who, as we've seen in the Grand Prix here, if he gets into a Ferrari next year and it's as good as he deserves it to be, he's going to be a legend in 1991. He could even fight for the title. But Nelson Piquet bows out of Formula One at Benetton to join the Arrows team next year, and I think he's well aware of the fact that he's in the twilight of his career. But he wants one final hurrah with the Arrows team. Oh, as Prost locks up, and I think that's his last chance of overhauling Nigel Mansell. Well and truly gone for a burden there for the Frenchman. But he'll still have to be satisfied with 3rd place for Brabham. And this is the team with which he'll rebuild next year and come back for another shot at the world title. So the battle is going to be intense next year, that's for sure. Mansell comes through to start lap 80 of 81. And the Nike Ferrari is doing an absolutely brilliant job here in Australia. Mansell has had a great comeback at the tail end of this season. So hopefully there's more to come from him and the team next year. But what a sensational battle it's going to be, as the Brabham will continue to wear 1 and 2 next year, but the number 1 will go to Mika Hakkinen, as Alain Prost will wear number 2. McLaren will wear 3 and 4 under the new system. Tyrrell will wear 5 and 6. Williams will wear 7 and 8. And the Benetton team will carry 9 and 10, ahead of Lotus on 11 and 12. If it stays like this, Ferrari will carry 13 and 14. That's going to be interesting for them next year. And then Ligier will carry 15 and 16. Arrows will carry 17 and 18. With Fernandez about to score the team's highest result since the Italian Grand Prix, since the Belgian Grand Prix, sorry, when Alboreto came home in 5th position, which has been the team's highest result of the year. The final lap begins in the Australian Grand Prix of 1990. And what a special day it is for Nelson Piquet as he bows out of the Benetton team in the lead. A race that has effectively been handed to him, but to finish first you have to finish. That is the golden rule of Formula One. And Nelson Piquet, the 3-times world champion of 81, 83 and 1987, is going to finish his Benetton journey as a race winner. And that will be an astonishing end to his tally in the sport as he comes through out of the final turn. And Nelson Piquet crosses the line. The Brazilian wins the Australian Grand Prix of 1990 to end his season on a high. Absolutely spectacular from Nelson Piquet as we watch Stefano Modena in the Ferrari, hopefully to come home in 4th position in the Grand Prix. But there is the man finishing second, Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari. A brilliant end to the year for the Scuderia, and it sets things up nicely for 1991. Mansell is second, and Alain Prost is third in the Brabham. But Nelson Piquet, a very dramatic winner in the final race of the Australian Grand Prix season. Absolutely astonishing. McLaren are the Constructors' World Champions. Mika Hakkinen is the 1990 World Champion, the first rookie ever to do so. Absolutely amazing as Nelson Piquet leaves the Benetton team as a race-winning driver. Fantastic performance. Nelson Piquet wins the Australian Grand Prix. Mansell is second for Ferrari. Prost is third. Modena fourth. Frentzen fifth. And Fernandez sixth. They are the only finishers and the only ones able to claim championship points. Mark Blundell, Michael Schumacher, Larini and Hakkinen in the top 10, but not able to claim the victory and not able to claim the points. Ayrton Senna crashed, as did Patrese. Zanardi with a broken suspension. McNish with a puncture, and everybody else crashed out of the race in a very dramatic and sizzling Grand Prix. Absolutely incredible. So many competitors pushed so hard in this Australian Grand Prix that we lost them all from the race result. The final bonus point of the year does indeed go to Nigel Mansell. Senna so close to the World Championship. Hakkinen managing to get the job done, but Mansell and Ferrari claimed the final bonus point of the 1990 season. And that is it. It's been an incredible Grand Prix 2 World Championship of 1990. But as we've mentioned already, Pierluigi Martini wins the Go Bobbit UK Cup. McLaren are the Constructors' World Champions. But the new World Champion of 1990 is the Finn and the rookie, Mika Hakkinen. I'm Jake Sanson. We hope you've enjoyed the 1990 Grand Prix 2 World Championship season. But 1991 is not that far away.